Hopefully you can see me. I got a big shop light on. I got every light I have on, but being so bright outside with the snow and everything, I don't know how bright I am right now. So if it's dark, I apologize. Anyway, welcome back. My name's Nick. This is Tractors and Stuff, and today I got the tractor with the front end loader off because we're going to be installing this guy. This is a zero start thermo engine heater, lower radiator hose heater, 1.5 inch. So why? We're going to get to that first. So it's winter time out. Obviously you can see by the snow. We actually have had a pretty mild winter this so far. But when it does dip down to those really cold temperatures and I want to get out and plow the driveway, either it's really hard on the tractor to actually start when it's cold, even though you got those glow plugs. Getting that oil, getting that coolant warmed up quickly is key. And starting it with that oil so thick and the engine really cold and just kind of, it's pretty hard on it. So there's stories of, oil pumps failing and, turbos not getting lubricated well enough, that sort of thing, because they didn't have a way of heating the engine without running it. Well, that's what this does. So another benefit of this is that it warms it up faster. So instead of going out, starting it, letting it run for a few minutes, bumping up the idle to 1500, going inside and drinking a cup of coffee for another 20-30 minutes, now you go inside, you slam a cup of coffee because in about 10 minutes or so, it's ready to go. So every tractor I've ever had has always had some sort of block heater, and we'll talk about different types in a minute. The type that this is actually the easiest to install, in my opinion. There's a lot of opinions out there about these, and we're going to do some testing with an IR thermometer probably later tonight because I just fired up the tractor. I'm going to fire it up again to put the front end loader back on, that sort of thing, and I want to get a true test. So it might not actually be until later this week that I can actually get out there with the IR gun, show it cold, turn on the heater, wait a few minutes, and see where the engine temperature is at. So the idea behind this is that it heats the coolant at the bottom of the radiator right before it goes into the block, and without a pump or anything like that, it just circulates through convection that warm water through the coolant jacket that surrounds the block. Because it circulates hot water at that point through the engine, it warms that metal, it warms the oil. It's not 100% efficient. There are better things out there, but again, this is really easy to install. So without further ado, let's get to installing this, and I'll continue talking about different types as we do it. Okay, so under the hood now, we've located the lower radiator hose heater. You can tell that. Try and move the camera around here so you can see. The radiator hose comes out of the bottom of the radiator down here, and this is it right here. It goes into the engine block, the water pump. So according to the instructions, which I have right here, they say you need a 3-inch section of straight piece without any dips before the engine. And you want it as close to the engine as you can. But you have some other things to consider, like if there's any plastics behind it. So like right here, I was thinking this would be a good spot. It's more than 3 inches. But I'm afraid that this, even though it's not plastic, this cap right here is plastic. So this is my oil fill. I don't want that melting. So this would be ideal. But I think down here is going to be better. So what I've done is I've marked it. That's the section that needs to be cut out. It's about a 1-inch section, and that's where the radiator hose heater is going to go. There's no low spots between that spot and the engine, and I believe the best way for me to get this done, they show in the instructions that you can just cut it and put the radiator hose heater in without taking the hose off. And that's true, but I think I'm just going to take the whole hose off because it's relatively easy to get to and won't be that hard to do. So step one, first thing we need to do is to actually drain the radiator, because if we take this hose heater off, if we take this hose off, or we cut the hose, depending on what you want to do, it's full of coolant. And as soon as we take that off, all the coolant's going to flow onto the ground. That's not good. So in order to do that, I got a clean bucket. Come around here to the other side. I'm going to place the bucket. All right. Place the bucket right here. This little hose right here is your coolant. And it's got a petcock right here. You just open that up, and the coolant should start to flow. Okay, it's not flowing because the radiator cap there it goes. That's going to take a little bit to drain that. I do plan on recycling this, or not recycling it. You can recycle it. You can use this as an opportunity to do a coolant flush and clean out your radiator. So it's squirting out. That's coming out of the valve. I unscrewed it a little too far. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pour that right back in, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And I think the manual says you have to do a coolant change like every 500 hours or 1500 hours. It's something like that. And we're not to that point yet. So there's nothing wrong with the coolant. I'm going to keep using it. I do have more coolant in case we come up low. So we're just going to let that drain, and we'll take that hose heater off, or that, I keep calling it a hose heater. We're going to take that radiator hose off, take it over to the workbench, and cut it.
A few moments later.
Okay, so the radiator's drained, and that took a very long time. I actually went inside the house and had a sandwich because it was taking too long. So I came back out, it was still kind of dripping. I tightened up that petcock and moved the bucket out so stuff doesn't fall into it. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is pull this radiator hose off. So I'm hoping that you got a good angle so you can see. Let's get going. I got a 7mm quarter drive on here. Loosen up these hose clamps. Needless to say, you definitely want to do this when the tractor is cool. So, which it is. So the different types of engine heaters, there's three main types. You have the kind that we're doing, which is the low radiator hose heater. That heats the water, and that's not going to go on there. I need a different wrench. There we go. I had to get the right wrench for this, and it's quarter turn at a time. This is actually a 8mm. That upper one wanted to be a 7. So anyway, there are three main types of engine heaters. We have the low radiator hose heater, which heats the water in the heater and the radiator hose, thus heating the engine as it cycles through. You have the sticky pads, or magnetic pads, which kind of do the same thing. It's just like a heating pad that you stick to the engine block, usually the oil reservoir, and that thus in turn heats the oil in the engine. Those aren't very efficient, I found. There's usually, on the magnetic ones, there's usually kind of a gap that gets formed between the magnet and the engine and the heater because of the magnet. But they do work. I mean, everything works. It's just how efficient is it. The other type is what's called a freeze plug, and I actually wrestled with getting a freeze plug heater or not. A freeze plug heater actually goes into what's called a freeze plug into the engine block, and it plugs in. It does the exact same thing this kind of heater does, but it's a little bit more involved because you have to knock out a freeze plug. Sometimes you have to thread that. What a freeze plug is the leftover from the casting of the engine block itself. They had to have some way to dump the sand out of the mold after they casted the engine block, and so that's where the sand comes out. And then they just press in a plug, and the reason why they call them freeze plugs is because if your freeze plug is knocked out, it's a good indicator that your engine has frozen. The water inside your engine has frozen, and that's a good place for it to go. As it expands, it knocks out that plug instead of doing damage to your engine. They're not there, it's a common misconception, they are not there to protect your engine. It's just a leftover like artifact from the casting process. So it just so happens to be that they also serve that purpose as well. But if you see that you have a knocked out freeze plug due to your engine freezing, you probably have other problems too, like your water pump is probably toast, you're gonna have problems. So it doesn't protect, as some people might say. So we got those loose. I'm just trying to pull this off. She wants to be kind of a bear. Oh boy. There it goes. I didn't get that nearly tight enough, or loose enough rather. This is right in the way. So I don't know how well you're seeing that. Oh, pretty good. So we got this one off, but I might be able to cut that now. Just make that a little easier. I don't know if you can see in there. No, because that bracket's right in the way. This loader bracket. I'm trying to readjust you. Getting the camera in here is kind of a bear too. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do, is I'm just going to cut it right here. I was worried about cutting it up against here because it's really hard to get in here. Just taking the top off. I don't need to take this entire thing off. That's fine the way it is. And I just noticed that the battery is going to die in the camera, so I'm going to go change that out real fast. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just going to verify again and mark where I want this to go, because you only get one opportunity to cut this. I want it to be right there. That didn't mark at all. This Sharpie is toast. Yeah. I'm going to cut it straight and as clean as I can. Got my knife. See my marks. There's no going back now. A little bit of coolant. Okay. Set that aside. Now we need to take another cut off of here. Probably should have cut this cut first. See my mark. Spilling coolant all over the ground. It's pet-friendly coolant that are in these things, so I'm watching my thumb. Definitely don't want to get cut. And this would have been easier with this off. My head's probably in the way. I'm trying really hard to cut straight, not like that, and not cut my thumb. So there we have a somewhat clean cut. Wow. It should go on there all right, though. Okay, we'll put it on the lower one first. We're going to need our hose clamp on there. Now I want the plug going this way. I had to check my camera angle there. So we're just gonna push this onto that hose. There we go. I gotta loosen that clamp up a little bit, because I can't spin it and get it over top of the flange. Oh, come on. There we go. So freeze plug heaters, they're probably the best as far as efficiency goes, but they're also really hard to install. And you can try and search on YouTube how to install them. You can see how you can replace them, but usually you have to cut threads on the freeze plug. I'm looking at a freeze plug right here on the engine, and that would be just a nightmare to get to, let alone cut threads into it or press the thing in. It's just, I don't want to say it's beyond my abilities, it's just not something that I'm too excited about doing. So, okay. All right, let's try to get this upper part back on there. Are we still filming? Yeah, all right. I should just kind of squish on there. Like that. Okay. Whew. And then I just push this upper part back on like that. There we go. Well, this is kind of angling away a little bit. I don't think I can spin that too much. That's where the plug goes. I'll show that here next. I'm not too worried about that at all. So, get our hose clamp. We got to loosen that up a little bit. Just enough so it'll fit over that. You want it as close to that heater as you can. And we'll tighten that guy up. And this one's 7mm. The 8 will not fit on it. Now, these don't have to be uber tight, but they shouldn't fall off. There we go. And then my 8mm, I gotta tighten this guy back up. While I'm doing this, I can talk about coolant on the floor, because I just cleaned up that coolant mess over there. I said that it's pet safe or pet friendly. That doesn't mean you want your pets drinking it. I've got some foam action going on. That's fantastic. So I got a whole bunch to go, so I know it's not even close to full yet. It just foamed up on me. So we'll let that calm down a little bit. I'm going to pump the hose. Any coolant spills or oil spills or grease or anything you want to clean up, it's the right thing to do. You don't want your pets drinking it. You don't want, even though it's safe, and all that stuff, you still don't want them to do it. It also has kind of a slippery component to it. It's like got oil and stuff in it. Not actually oil, but it's slippery, right? And you don't want to slip and fall on it. I have a toddler that runs around. I don't want him to slip and fall. I definitely don't want him playing in it. So kitty litter on it, wipe it up, put some kitty litter on it, and it should be good. All I did there, I'm sorry I didn't get that on camera either. I just hand pumped that hose, just squeezing it, just doing this to that hose. Not this hose, this is the air cleaner, but that hose we were just working on, and that will allow to kind of pump the water back into the engine a little easier, eliminate those air bubbles. They actually make a cool little funnel for doing this, so you can actually use your engine when you're all by yourself. It has like a plug in the funnel, and you fill it up. It's got a big old reservoir, and you stick it on there. It actually clamps on here and creates a seal. So you fill it all up, and you leave a big old reservoir up here, and you turn your engine over, and that pumps the water in your engine, and it cycles it and it draws what it needs. And then you just put the plug in the bottom, put the cap on it, and then you can take it back to your container and pour it back in your container. I don't have one, so I'm using this method right here of just pouring it in slowly, making a mess. Once it's full, I come around to this hose here and just give it a couple pumps. You can kind of feel it too. You can hear it. You can hear it gurgling. Let me just add some more. I'll be topping the system off with this Prestone ready to use. It's a 50-50 mix already. Some people say, dude, you just bought water, and I would agree. But instead of taking a test, a reading of it, and mixing it myself and trying to figure out how much antifreeze water I need to get the desired temperature protection that I need, this is already done. I just dump it in, top it up. I don't have to measure anything. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it's also way faster. Okay, well, that's saying that it's good. I'm going to put the cap on it. I'm going to fire it up for a minute, let it run for a little bit. And my coolant reservoir here is really low. I'll put some in there. Maybe. far so good. I'm not seeing any leaks, no drips. Everything seems to be all right. I'll make sure there's no air in it. Okay, so I got the coolant all topped up. Everything's good. The engine's slightly warm, so it had time to cycle. You know, the thermostat opened, and any air bubbles, you know, came out. While it was waiting, I plugged this in. Just a simple plug that slips on there. I routed the cable up and over just to get rid of some slack, and it comes down over here to where I can easily get to it. You might be asking yourself, what's this plug? That is another story for another video I'll get to in a little bit. So for this thing, we're pretty much done. I do want to check it right now to see just how warm it actually gets. So I'm going to grab an extension cord and plug it in. And plug this cap, plug it into my power cord, and within a few minutes here, this thing should get screaming hot. It's already getting warm. Well, I don't know if the camera is picking that up. I can see steam coming up off of this thing. It's getting pretty warm, yeah. So I have my little IR gun here. Let's check a few things. I'm going to do this again for the camera when it's actually cold. Like I said, I just had the engine running, getting it nice and warm, so I think it's really steaming. So let's check a few things around the area here. While I'm doing this, I'm also making sure nothing is melting that should be melting. So let's check the exhaust. We have 80 degrees. I turned it off maybe 10-15 minutes ago, so 80 degrees is pretty good. Let's check the metal down here. That's 47 degrees. Let's check the engine block. I'm going to check that freeze plug. It's 142 degrees. Now let's check this thing. It's 129 degrees, 132 degrees. It's bouncing in between. The hose, 108. It's really steaming. Hopefully the camera can see that. So yeah, if it heats this water up, it'll cycle through the engine. It'll come through the radiator. The radiator shouldn't cool it too much because there's no air moving through it. So it comes back through, gets rewarmed, and just circulates through the engine, heating everything up. Everything's great. And I run the risk of damaging the engine, and when it's really cold, it starts easier, and I don't have to wait as long for the engine to come up to temperature and to start working. So, okay, let's see what it says now. It's 135 degrees. Check that freeze plug. 140. Hose. 118. This thing isn't the most accurate thing. I think I found it to be about 3 degrees warmer than it really is. And there's no way to calibrate it. So I just know that's about 3 degrees off. For what we're doing, that does not matter. It's not a scientific tool, so it's cheap. So anyway, that's how I installed the low radiator hose heater. I'm going to come back. For you, it's going to be really fast and the magic of editing. But for me, it's going to be maybe a day or two, possibly up to a week. Depends on light and weather and how cold it gets. You know, I kind of want to do this test when it's actually below freezing. That way I can show just how much it warms up. It doesn't make any sense to do it when it's, you know, it's 50, 60 degrees outside. And we've been having some very mild weather outside. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in just a few minutes with, we'll see you in just a few seconds with checking the temperatures on this thing. Thanks for watching. Okay, so it's been a few days. I have the tractor actually plugged into the heater, but it's not on. This plug actually lights up when it's on. I came out here last night and actually turned it off just at the timer, so there's no power to this thing. It's been sitting all night. The ambient air temperature, according to the weather station side of the house, is about 18 degrees. So I have my little IR gun. This thing should be really cold. Pretty hard to start. I'm not going to start it right now. What we're going to do is check the temperatures, and I'm going to turn it on and turn the lower radiator hose heater on, and then come back in like an hour and check the temperatures again, see how much the tractor's actually warmed up. So I'll take a few readings here. Right there on the metal, it's 22 degrees. This thing is a little off compared to other thermometers that I have. It's about 3 degrees higher, that's about right then. It's like 4 degrees there. So let's check the heater itself is showing 22. That freeze plug we were looking at earlier is 24. Let's see, what else can we check? Let's check the exhaust. 20.9. Yeah, so let's go turn this thing on. As soon as it comes on, this is going to light up, and we'll check it again, and then we'll come back in an hour and check it again after that. So hopefully you can see that now is lit up, a little light right there. And let's check this. It should be starting to get warm. It's already at 33, 35. So we're warming up. So we'll come back in an hour and we'll check it again. It's been just under an hour or so. I think it's been only like 45 minutes, but I got other things to do today. So the power's still on, and let's take some more readings. So it actually cooled down a little bit as the sun's starting to come up. It's still not up yet, but it's getting pretty close. Inside the house said it was 16 degrees. Here we got 15. Let's check the heater. Heater says it's at 81 right there. 106 right there. I was putting the, ow, that's hot. That's more than 80. What did that say? Oh, so I'm too close. The IR beam is actually higher than the reader. So let me put the, like that. $125. So 125 on that thing. Let's check that freeze plug. Freeze plug says 42. And let's check the oil pan, something we didn't check before. Oil pan says 21. So the oil is still pretty cold. Again, it's only been like 45 minutes. I have that timer set to 4 hours on, and then at strategic times during the day when I'm going to use 4 hours before I know I'm going to use the tractor. So I'm sure that if this thing kept going for longer, it's just going to continue to warm up. So, but the freeze plug being at 42, that's a lot better than 16. So so far this thing is working great. I'm actually going to leave it plugged in and turned on, and I'm not going to film the rest of it. I think you guys get the idea. It warms up the engine, and it makes it easier for the tractor to start. It thins out that oil. Once that oil comes up to temperature a little bit, your warm-up times are a lot less. Your heater inside, if you have a cab, your heater starts spewing out warmer water faster, which for me helps defrost the cab if it's all frosty. And it's easier on the turbo, it's easier on the glow plugs, it's easier on everything. So I did notice the other day, after it ran its full cycle, I came out and turned the key and that glow plug light went instantly out. And I turned the key and it fired right up. So, and it was pretty cold. I think it was in the 20s that day, a couple days ago. So usually when it's that cold, you got to sit there and you got to wait, for several seconds for that glow plug to turn out. So that is about it for this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I really appreciate it. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Helps other people find my channel too. I found that recently, if I log out of my YouTube account and come in as a stranger, or somebody that's not signed in, and I search for LS Tractor, my videos start way at the bottom, and that's because I don't have a lot of subscribers, I don't have a lot of viewers. So I'm trying to increase that. So please, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, I don't put out videos on a regular basis, as some of you may know. I hate saying far and few between, but that's what it seems to be anymore. Hit that little bell notification too. That way you get a notification whenever I do upload a video, so you don't miss one. That really helps out as well. So, well, with that said, thank you. And I'll have links for everything that I'm using, including this little IR gun. It's not the greatest quality, but it gets the job done. I can tell that this engine is warmer now than it was before. It's warmer than everything else out here. That says it's 9 degrees. So, thanks for watching.